Now, I guess your original name was Storm Shadow?
Shadow Storm.
Shadow Storm, sorry.
Yeah, and I still am like a big comic book guy, so I wanted
Right,
to create
that's what I was thinking. It sounds like a comic book.
Yeah, I was trying to make this larger than life persona for myself and using a lot of big words and this crazy name, and the rhymes were terrible and the name was trash. So a good friend of mine, Sharon Thomas from Port Arthur, was, because my nickname was always Bun. So he was like, we're gonna call you Bun B. And because this was back with Eric B and, Joey J and all these hip hop names had these initials on them at the time. So they were calling me Bunny B, and then it went to Bun B.
Right. And I guess you and Pimp C really didn't get along in the beginning.
No, because he didn't know me, I didn't know him, and so we both had these preconceived notions about who the other guy was. And there was a football game we met at for the first time through Mitchell Queen. And he was like, yeah, man, you always talking about you be in Houston, you be around these rappers, you don't be doing that shit. You know what I'm saying? And I actually had just went to an Eazy-E concert in Houston. So back then, all the pictures were taken with Polaroids in the clubs. So they took like 4 or 5 pictures on Polaroids, and while they were like, they shake him around and put him down and wait for him to come through, I snatched one of the pictures from the photo booth. And so I brought that picture to that football game that next week, and when he called me out, I pulled out the picture. So he was like, oh shit, you really do be going around motherfuckers like that. And then, my whole thing with him was like, they say he makes beats, but his beats can't be that great. We're from Port Arthur. We don't have access to that kind of shit. And I went to his house and he had like a little drum machine and sequencer and shit, and was actually really making hip hop beats. And it kind of blew my mind at the time,
Well, you guys signed to an independent label out there, Big Time Records.
Yeah, Big Time's actually from Houston. He had a record store in Houston. So we went to the flea market. His record store was in the flea market. So we were in Pimp's, Pimp had an Acura Prelude back then. It was a 2-door, 4-seater, real small ass back seat. So we all piled in that shit. We used to call it the cigarette because he used to smoke all the time. And we all piled in the car. We drove to Houston to the flea market, and he had a sign said he was looking for demos, but we didn't have our demo. So we jumped back in the car, drove all the way back to PA, got the demo, brought it all the way back, played it for him. It was a couple of songs on there, but Tell Me Something Good was one of the songs that was on the demo, and he was like, that's a hit record. I want to fuck with that.
Well, my first introduction to UGK was the Menace to Society soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That's the remix.
I was living in the Bay at the time, and that was the biggest movie, period. At that
point. For sure.
And Pocket Full of Stones was on that, and it was just like, just such a hard record, so that was the original version, I guess. That was a remix.
No, that was the remix. We originally made another song for Menace to Society called 93 Mac, but Jive didn't want to clear the sample, and Pimp while we were in the studio, Pimp was just fucking around making a remix for it. So when they didn't want that song, we just sent him the remix to Pocket Full of Stones.
I mean, it was just so different. Like when you heard Pimp C, I got a pocket full of stones. Like, yo, who is this? Like, this isn't like anything I've ever heard before.
Yeah, it was a very different record, sonically, lyrically, and then Pimp's vocal tone was so distinctive at the time. You know what I'm saying? And we were trying to tell a story that wasn't necessarily promoting drugs. Because at the end of the song, we go to jail, we come out, and then we're right back, and we don't have anything, no social skills or nothing, so we kind of go right back to selling drugs again. But we still got banned by preachers in Texas. Like we would have different pastor coalitions or whatever come to our shows and like boycott us, like in front of the club.
Well, I mean, your line from that song, "Pistol Grip Pump on my lap at all times," that became the chorus for Volume 10.
Right. Which was insane. We had sampled people's voices or whatever on records before, like we just talked about. But it kind of blew my mind that somebody listened to my music and was into it that much and wanted to make a song out of it. And back then, I didn't even own my own publishing, so I wasn't even concerned about that aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? We just got our publishing back probably in the last 10 years. So for me, it was just part of the culture, being a part of the culture. Making a rap song, having another rapper listening to it, pulling something from it, and making a rap song out of it. And we didn't meet Volume 10 until years later.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, on the West Coast, that was a big record.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. And what's interesting is on that same song, you say, "Fuck Black Caesar," People call me Black Trump.
Again, another regrettable moment. But at the time, it wasn't a bad thing to associate yourself with somebody. You know, it's really more just about associating yourself with somebody that was, you know, doing it big, had a lot of money, lived a very glamorous, luxurious life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously in modern times, that doesn't necessarily work.
You know, to be fair, around that time, like a few years later, Raekwon dropped Incarcerated Scarfaces, where he calls himself the Black Trump also. So, you know, people were, you know, I think Smith & Wesson ended up sampling that and having a song called Black Trump. So a lot of people were doing it. It wasn't just you.
No, and then you look at Jay-Z, they named their record company Rockefeller, after the Rockefellers, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, at the time, we were young inner city cats trying to associate ourselves or identify ourselves as men of, you know, men of money, I guess, for no other way to put it. And so these were the kind of things that we would want to compare ourselves to and the kind of liquidity I think that we would want to have at the time.
Right, but unfortunately, because your record deals were so bad, you guys were not making any money.
No, we didn't get any back in. I've never gotten any royalties per se from any of the albums we made as a group under Jive Records. I'm probably still in the red in the Sony system somewhere. Jive as a record company doesn't exist anymore, but I'm probably the UGK account. I'm pretty sure it's still about 2 million in the red right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, the reason I started VladTV is because I did a movie deal with a movie company, and I'm still in the red in that too, even though it was on Showtime and, you know.
Well, when I saw James Cameron was still in the red, apparently from Titanic, I was like, well, goddamn, if a man makes a movie that generates $1 billion and they got accounting that says he still owes, this shit is some whole other shit that we don't even know about. And the way they would pacify artists, they'd be like, well, you're still in the red, but we can give you another advance for the next project. So that would, you know, that would kind of be the only way that we would get any more money from the record company. So a lot of artists from my generation live purely off of touring, merchandise, and features.
Well, you guys dropped multiple albums. I mean, on Jive, you guys dropped your first album, and then you followed it up with Super Tight, and then you followed that up with Ridin Dirty, which to me was my favorite album.
Oh, no, it's pretty much the seminal album from UGK.
Yeah, I mean, Diamonds and Wood, like, I still listen to that to this day. Like, I absolutely love that song.
Well, the whole album was created as about the nightlife in Texas, you know what I'm saying? What it was like being in the streets of Houston and Port Arthur, you know, with the slabs, the candy paint, sipping syrup, all of that kind of stuff that was a part of that lifestyle at that time. And that's why the album cover is us in the car, because it's really kind of like us riding around through the city at night. And if you open it up, we're actually getting jacked in the artwork inside the album, and we're getting jacked by a local group called the Botany Boys. So they were like friends of us, and we shot that in front of Screw's house, like right on the street in front of Screw's house.